quarterly crime community safety meeting. Thank you for attending and being here with us. We are at the River Forest Community Center tonight. We are live and on Zoom, so if you feel like it and you want to come over to the Community Center, you're welcome. We have open seats. We have lots of great guest speakers here tonight, both in person and joining us via Zoom. And if I introduce myself, I'm Officer Ben Ransom, River Forest Police Department. I'm the Crime Prevention Officer. I handle community engagement, public safety and education, and I get to do lots of cool things like host these meetings. So please join me as we say the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we kick off our guest speakers, I will have Chief Jim O'Shea come up here for a few opening statements.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for those that are watching online, and it's great to actually have an in-person audience out here tonight. Some took advantage of the nice weather to walk on over, and it's great that the Community Center, River Forest, invited us to utilize one of their meeting rooms this evening. We have a host of great speakers tonight, so what we're not going to do is do some of the normal overviews of some of the programs and services we offer to award that time to those that have taken time out of their busy schedule tonight. And Crime Prevention Officer Ben Ransom will be introducing them. Follow the presentations, which we will be allowing questions for to the presenters this evening. We will present a little bit about what's going on in River Forest, also answer any questions coming from the local community, and then also close out the meeting, making sure that every question has been answered or you've been provided with a resource for future follow-up with one of the department's personnel. And to not waste any more time and to get the meeting going, I'm going to turn it back over to Officer Ransom to introduce our first speaker tonight.
Thank you, Chief. So one of the issues that we run into when we are having these on-scene community meetings is that we have to deal with traffic. So our first guest speaker is running a few minutes behind. So we're going to open up with Ethan Holland from the Assistant State's Attorney's Office. Ethan is a supervisor for the Gun Crime Strategies Unit and also for the Violent Crimes Investigations Unit. And he's going to kick off our discussion talking about some of the gun crime strategies that they're engaging in over at the State's Attorney's Office. And Ethan, we will turn it over to you and we will give you screen share ability if you need it.
Great. Thank you, Officer Ransom. I will try to be interesting tonight. If I can't be interesting, I will try to be brief. If I can't be either, my apologies in advance. My name is Ethan Holland. I'm an Assistant State's Attorney. I've been with the office for about 22 years. For the last 3 years, I've been the supervisor of the Gun Crime Strategies Unit and the Violent Crime Investigation Unit. Prior to that, for about 10 years, I was in the Cold Case Homicide Unit. But tonight, I'm going to talk to you about the unit that I currently supervise, which is the Gun Crime Strategies Unit. The Gun Crime Strategies Unit was started in response to an unprecedented spike in violence in homicide, specifically in 2016. Between 2015 and 2016, there was about a 60% increase in homicides. This number far outpaced similarly situated cities like Los Angeles, like New York, like Houston. And in 2018, there were over 3,000 fatal and non-fatal shootings in the city of Chicago. When we looked at the data, about 45% of these shootings occurred in only 5 districts, the 6th and 7th district, the 10th and 11th and 15th district. 6th and 7th districts are on the south side of Chicago. The 10th, 11th and 15th are on the west side of Chicago. And in response to this violence and looking at the data, the Gun Crime Strategies Unit was created by State's Attorney Kim Foxx with really 2 goals. Number one, to identify and build intelligence on individuals driving violence in these strategically identified police districts. And number 2, to build the strongest possible cases against drivers of violence using a multi-agency resources, and then to vertically prosecute those cases. To do this, we needed to develop an understanding of the individuals and groups, both established and evolving conflicts, by, number one, embedding prosecutors in these districts to work very closely with Chicago police personnel. Number one, we maintain daily consistent contact with district commanders, with district intelligence officers, with TAC teams, and with personnel in the strategic decision support centers. And we also attend, daily briefings with the folks that I just mentioned, and participate in weekly shoot reviews where we go over all the shootings, both fatal and non-fatal, that happen in those districts, and try to come up with plans to address those, to solve those crimes, et cetera. Finally, we try to build strong relationships, both with the Chicago Police Department personnel and other law enforcement stakeholders, including and especially folks in the community. Now, our unit concentrates on drivers of violence. And who am I talking about? Well, when we talk about drivers of violence, we're really talking about those individuals who are most likely to shoot other people or be shot themselves. And we do this really by using human intelligence. And I mentioned earlier the district intelligence officers. These are officers that have been with the police department for a while, have worked their way up the ranks, and really have their finger on the pulse of their districts. They know these violent conflicts block by block, and sometimes house by house. We look at the data, we look at the background of individuals, and we're really trying to identify people that are trigger pullers, not necessarily shot callers. We think we have the biggest impact with people that are actually out there shooting people. And again, much of this work is done through human intelligence. In addition, we gather information from cooperating witnesses, from confidential informants, intel, like I said, from the district intelligence officers and the personnel in the SDSC rooms. And that's really how we try to do it. We also proffer defendants, which is a way of kind of talking with them to try to develop intelligence that way as well. All of my assistant state's attorneys and myself are alerted every time a driver of violence is arrested in Chicago. We are told what they were arrested for, where they were arrested, what the charge is, and any gang affiliation they may have. In fact, we're notified anytime somebody in the city of Chicago is shot, so you can imagine how often our phones are blowing up. We're notified immediately, and the reason why that's important is because we have a 48-hour window after someone is arrested. Felony charges may not have been approved at that point. They may have not even called the case into felony review. But as soon as that individual is arrested, we start our job. And one of the first things we do is we contact the Chicago Police Department SOMEX unit. That's the Social Media Exploitation Unit. And they will perform an open source social media search. This is a search that does not need a warrant. It does not affect or touch the Fourth Amendment. This is information that people are putting out on the internet willingly for anybody to see. And the reason we do that is because we're trying to put together enhanced bond packets to really educate judges in bond court about the person that's standing in front of them. And the reason this is important, especially in the area of bond reform, is because we have to have credibility. We can't, as prosecutors, pretend like every single person that ends up in a felony courtroom is a danger to the community. That's just not the case. We try to make sure that when we go up and ask for high bonds, it's for people that we really think are a risk to other people in the community, are driving violence, and are dangerous. And what do I mean when I say we put together these enhanced bond packets? Well, we do these open source social media searches, I should say the Chicago Police Department does. And really what we're trying to find out is what this individual is putting out online. And frequently what we find is we see photos of individuals holding extended clip magazines, taunting rival gang members. There's evidence of gang activity, throwing gang signs, identifying themselves as gang members. And the reason why we do this is because, sometimes a defense attorney will stand up and say, my client is a good kid, they live in a bad neighborhood, and they need a gun to protect themselves. And sometimes that is, in fact, the case. But when we find evidence on social media of people openly showing their gang affiliation, openly taunting other people, making threats, really glorifying gang activity, that seems to cut against that narrative that, this person is really not a danger to the community. So once we do that, we vertically prosecute these cases. And what I mean by that is we take the case from arrest all the way through sentencing. Now, in Cook County, it's not possible or really feasible to vertically prosecute every case. Cook County has about 26,000 felonies that come through our courthouse every year, and to vertically prosecute every case would just not be possible. There are a lot of benefits to vertically prosecuting cases. We can make these cases stronger by utilizing the grand jury to lock in witness and advance investigations prior to indicting cases. We collaborate and assist with felony review, although we do not act as felony review. They are an independent unit in our office that tries to determine whether or not felony charges are appropriate. Do we have enough evidence? Can we ethically charge a case and sustain our burden? But when those cases are approved, we will take them and handle them from there all the way through. I often think of when people ask me, why do you think vertical prosecution is a good thing? I think back to my days in cold case when I would spend years, sometimes 5-10 years, investigating cases, and I would talk to witnesses, and I would talk to victims. I would talk to victims' families, and I would develop a rapport with them. They would have my personal cell phone. They could call me whenever they wanted. So when we were able to charge a case and actually prosecute it, and it came time for trial, I could reach out to them. I wasn't some nameless, faceless prosecutor that they'd never had interaction with. I was, the guy that they had known for all of those years. When they asked me something, I would answer them honestly. When they reached out to me, I would answer my phone. So, we had developed a rapport, which can make all the difference in the world. That's one of the things that we're trying to do as prosecutors, is really develop a rapport with the communities that are most affected. And to the extent that those people can trust us and cooperate, it just makes our job a lot easier. So vertically prosecuting does absolutely have benefits that make our job easier and really make justice a lot more achievable. Additionally, all of my ASAs, as well as myself, are cross-designated as Special Assistant United States Attorneys, which means that we can go into federal court and prosecute cases just like we do in state court. And sometimes federal court is a better venue, depending on what the statute is, depending on what the penalties are. Sometimes it's just a better outcome going into federal court as opposed to state court. Sometimes it's better to stay in state court. We have that flexibility. We have a very close relationship with the U.S. Attorney's Office, maybe closer certainly than any time that I've been in the office, and we work very closely with them. We establish relationships with other law enforcement agencies also, obviously the FBI, the ATF, DEA, and Chicago Police Department, as I indicated earlier. But really what we do is we marshal these cases through pretrial, through trial, through post-trial, and make sure that these important cases don't fall through the cracks. We keep stakeholders apprised throughout the process, and it really just kind of goes more smoothly when we're able to do that. I talked a little bit about our multi-agency relationships. Again, our relationships with the Chicago Police Department, with the district intelligence officers, the commanders, the TAC officers, et cetera. As a state's attorney, you really don't have that much interaction with the Chicago Police Department. You might have an interaction with them when they call a case into felony review. You might have an interaction with them when they come to court, when you subpoena them either for a motion or for a trial. But other than that, there's not really that much collaboration, which is why having my prosecutors embedded in these districts really generate trust between the agencies that is so important to do a good job. And so, that partnership and that communication really makes all of our jobs easier. And again, as I indicated, we work closely with the ATF, with the FBI, et cetera, and the U.S. Attorney's Office. Now, the other part of my job is the Violent Crimes Investigation Unit, which is really more proactive. The Gun Crime Strategies Unit is more reactive. When somebody picks up a case, we will handle it. The Violent Crimes Investigation Unit is more proactive. We do longer-term investigations in these same districts. It may be a state or federal RICO investigation. It may just be a more complicated case that takes more investigating. And so we are also equipped to do that, which I think is a nice complement to the work that we do in the Gun Crime Strategies Unit. And really, without belaboring the point too much, and I want to get to the other presenters who are probably going to be a lot more interesting than I am, the lesson that we have learned kind of in the last couple of years is that collaboration is the key. You build a team and you work together and you start to trust each other. The same way that we need to build trust with the communities that we serve, with the victims that we serve, with their families, with the witnesses especially. You can't care about who gets the credit for doing it. That's not what it's about. You'll get all the credit you need when you win a trial and a victim or their family comes up and gives you a hug or a pat on the back. And that's really all the kind of recognition that is enough to keep you going to do your job. Building intelligence on these drivers of violence, really understanding what are these kind of existing conflicts. In some of these districts, these gang conflicts go back 50 years. And the gang borders are the same as they were back in the early 70s. So in some ways, not a lot changes. In other ways, a lot changes. Some of the gangs are more fractured now. And so you have more conflicts within a gang, trying to gain either dope spots or retaliatory violence. And I think social media plays a big part in that because people can really taunt people now from the privacy of their own home. They don't have to be out in the streets. And so that is another big kind of change in the way that we do things. And we have to learn lessons from, we have to always evolve in terms of how we address what we're doing and try to be better. We got to build solid investigations. Nothing matters if you can't go into court and prove a case. It's all for nothing. And then we need to bring the charges in the best venue where we're going to get the best measure of justice for the victims and their families. And finally, we just need to start investigating and prosecuting smarter. So with that, hopefully I gave you kind of a thumbnail sketch overview of what my unit does. I welcome any questions you have at the end. I appreciate River Forest for allowing me the opportunity to be here tonight. And I thank the chief and Officer Ransom and appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Ethan, we do have a couple of questions and we might have a couple coming in from the audience. Can you hear me?
I can indeed.
Excellent. Anything you can share? As you know, our community is part of the 4th District and our cases go to the 4th District Courthouse.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been a reporting of uptick in violence in some of the 4th District communities, not just the far south suburbs or in the Austin, Inglewood, Garfield Park areas. What can you tell us a little bit to share with our residents about what's going on in some of these 4th District communities and some of the success that you've had in maybe reducing gun violence or getting some guns off the street?
So, of course, the 4th District kind of is the western border of the city, and all of your cases go to, I believe, Maywood, right? I started my career in Markham, which was down in the south suburbs. And what I found is, we started to kind of see that what we were doing in the city might actually work in the suburbs as well. And so, ideally, what we'd like to do is expand into some of the other districts because, I know there are a ton of great police officers in River Forest and other communities around there that have the same expertise and knowledge about the folks driving violence in their towns and villages, just like the Chicago Police Department does. And it really doesn't change. I mean, violence doesn't stay within a certain district. We have people from the 10th District that are committing crimes, on the north side of the city, out in the south suburbs, sometimes in the west side. And so, you know, I think ideally going forward, we would like to kind of expand this model to include some of the outlying districts, certainly the 4th district, as well as obviously the 6th district down in Markham as well. And, you know, we welcome the opportunity to kind of expand this model that we've started in Chicago.
And Ethan, also, as far as we're seeing this newer phenomenon of instead of 2 shots, 8 shots, 20 shots being fired at some of these crime scenes or mass shootings, we're actually seeing 30, 60, 120 rounds, combination of assault rifles and mass or large capacity semi-automatics. What any comments or anything you can share on just from your side of the house on this uptick in the amount of ammunition being put into these commercial and also residential neighborhoods?
So I think that's a measure of the weapons that they have. You know, I mean, and we see this when we do these open source social media searches, that you see these drum magazines that are capable, you know, and they're not for sport, you know, they're not for personal defense, they're for killing people. And I think we have to be honest about that, you know, and listen, I understand that people appreciate the Second Amendment. It's a right that we all have, but we have to be smart about this and recognize that, you know, there's no place in our society for these weapons of mass destruction that are really out there just to kill people and to make it easier to kill people. It's not about hunting. It's not about self-defense. It's not about going to a range and working on your marksmanship. It's about killing people. And, you know, when we do these social media searches, that's exactly what we're seeing. I mean, the people driving violence are proud of the weapons they have. And as you know, Chief, you know, they're coming in. We have some of the strictest gun laws in the country here in Chicago and in Illinois, and it doesn't matter. They're finding a way to get these guns and these high capacity magazines, which are just you know, really devastating to communities and to people.
Thank you, Ethan. Let me just check with our facilitator. Do we have any questions that's coming online at this time? Any questions from the audience that I can share with Ethan? Sir?
Oh, yes. The federal prosecutor's office has indicated that to prosecute those who were carrying illegal guns, could you tell us, according to the Chicago police, that they've taken off, what, close to 6,000 this year? How many of those have you in Cook County prosecuted?
So I'm not sure I understand the question. Of the 6,000 guns that have been seized by the feds, by the FBI, is that the question?
Chicago Police Department.
Maybe I can.
By the Chicago Police Department. So,
yeah, Ethan, of 6,000 guns being taken off the street, and how many criminal cases maybe have not only come into the county court system, but maybe the federal system with regard to 6,000 gun seizures?
So we work very closely with our federal partners in the Project Safe Neighborhood program, which is run by obviously the U.S. Attorney's Office and the Department of Justice. And so we have partners in our districts that are federal prosecutors that we work with, and obviously we prosecute crimes with them as well. We focus on the people that we've determined that we've identified as drivers of violence, right? Which is a small subset of that number. The folks that are not drivers of violence would be prosecuted for the most part in state court. The federal government has the ability to adopt state cases, and we do facilitate that as well. You know, it's a calculus that we make. We look at kind of where the case is, what charges we have available to us, both on the state and federal level, and where we think we're going to get the best measure of justice. And so while the Felony Trial Division, which is another unit in our office that kind of handles, you know, the felonies, as opposed to us, we are in the Special Prosecutions Bureau, which we're kind of a specialized unit. We focus on the drivers of violence. I'd say a majority of those cases, sir, are probably handled in state court. I don't have numbers in front of me, and I don't have the data.
Would you say it's 10%? Would you say it's 20%? I'm told there's very few cases prosecuted, and the people who are saying that is the federal prosecutors themselves, that in Cook County, you do not prosecute those who have illegal guns. What's the story with taking them off the street if nothing goes for those who are felons?
Well, I can only speak for myself and my unit, sir. We take it very seriously. Whenever somebody that we have identified as a driver of violence is found with a gun, we will vigorously prosecute them with every statute we have available. Armed habitual criminal statute, which is a Class X felony, you're looking at 6 to 30 years at 85%. We use every statute at our disposal to get the maximum sentence we can. Because these are the people that we really think are disproportionately affecting it. And I can't speak for anybody else or for the U.S. Attorney's Office, but I can speak for my unit, and we take it very seriously. Anytime anybody is caught with a gun, even when they're not brandishing it, when they're not shooting at other people, it's just found in their car. If we can prosecute it, we will, and we do. I don't know what the specific numbers are, but I can assure you that we do take it very seriously in our unit, and we do not go soft on offenders who we believe are driving violence, because that's the best way. We have a saying, if you can get somebody off the street for a couple of weeks, if you can get a higher bond, that's a couple of weeks that they can't make bail. And in those couple of weeks, they can't be shot themselves. They can't shoot anybody else. And frequently, as you know, just by reading the newspaper, these drivers of violence very rarely hit what they're shooting at, right? They're hitting innocent people. They're hitting 7-year-old children. They're hitting, elderly people. They're not hitting what they're shooting at. Now, it doesn't matter. Anybody that's hit is a serious case, and we do take it seriously. And we do not go soft on it. And it's not something that we take lightly at all. But I appreciate your question. Sometimes, narratives that you see in newspapers, sometimes they're true, but sometimes they're not. Sometimes it's not an accurate statement. And I can tell you that we do not dismiss cases if we can sustain our burden. We do not go out and try to give probation if we think we have a person that's a real danger to the community. We do not advocate for a driver of violence to get electronic monitoring, because we think that they're a danger to the community. And that's kind of the point, right? So we have to do everything in our power to make sure that the people that really are a danger to the community can't be out there hurting people while cases are pending.
And we do have another speaker from the State's Attorney's Office tonight, and I know their time is, they've scheduled a certain amount of time to get in. If there's any follow-up questions for Ethan, he will be available. He will provide an email address for some follow-up questions.
I would like to collaborate with him, because I think I have something to offer and he would have something to offer, and we can collaborate.
Ethan, will you stick around and see the next couple of guest speakers?
I'd be happy to, Chief.
Thank you very much. And at this time, I'm going to allow Officer Ransom to introduce our next speaker. And thank you, Ethan, for your presentation.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Ethan. Thanks for your time. Thanks for joining us. Our next guest speaker is Angelia Bianca. She is an award-winning author, speaker, and anti-violence activist. I have her book here. It's called In Deep: How I Survived Gangs, Heroin, and Prison to Become the Chicago Violence Interrupter. Angelia's going to come up and talk to us a little bit about her story and what it means to be a violence interrupter. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Officer. Also, Officer, can you take a couple pictures while I'm talking? Oh my God, I'm so dang. Anyway, so first I want to thank the River Forest Police for risking their lives to keep people like me and you safe, because it's not easy to be a police officer nowadays, right? My name is Angelia Bianca. I'm not the person I used to be. I've been sober and law-abiding. Like, I make myself crazy. I'm so law-abiding for over 11 years now. I'm productive. I pay taxes. I vote, right? And I advocate for policy change to curb violence. And then I go out into the streets working with, organizations and, to try to get to these kids, right? And it's like, there's so many layers to the onion, right? And so, my past, I was a criminal, and in my book, like I always tell people, please remember, I'm not that person anymore, because it's extremely brutally honest, and I'm not glorifying anything, but I can't tell half of the story and help somebody, right? So I had to be brutally honest as to how somebody, and I had a lot of potential, right, as so many. But I kept going downhill. And as a juvenile, I was delinquent. I was raised by my grandmother. At a young age, I lived in Little Italy. And then they started to dismantle that, right, because of the university and all that stuff. So my family moved to Oak Park. So actually, Oak Park or River Forest is like my hometown, right? I went to Oak Park River Forest High School, basically, and I was really smart. And I went to Emerson Grade School. And at a very young age, I was very athletic and very competitive, right? And I was all involved in sports and on the swim team, and I a roller skating champion and all this stuff, right? And then in 5th grade, I was getting bored in school, and kind of almost to the point where, I didn't hardly have to study. I'm not trying to act like I'm a genius or anything like that, but I was a bright kid, right? And I could get through. And I was getting bored, and I met back in the olden days, because I'm old, there was like the low class, middle, and high class. I was in the high class. So I faked like I couldn't do the work so I can go to the low class, because I met these really cool group of kids, from River Forest and Oak Park. So I wanted to hang with them. And then I started in 5th grade. By 9 years old, I was getting high. I was popping pills, I was smoking weed. And hey, I thought that was fun. My mother left us, me and my sister, when I was 5. So my father and his mother, my grandma really raised us. And I was like her favorite. So I had no consequences, you know what I mean? So it wasn't like, she actually had a deal with the Oak Park police, because I'd always be arrested for curfew or all type of stuff. And I'm not gonna stay on that long on this topic. But I just want to give you an idea of how, and it was like, I'd get arrested for curfew or stealing from Montgomery Wards on the Oak Park Mall. And my family owns Gene and Jude's. So we're not rich, but we weren't poor, we were okay. I could have said, Grandma, give me $20, I can go buy some elbows, right? But it was more of a thrill, I'm gonna go steal them, right? So, and I'd get caught. And my grandmother, she was, not up in age, but whatever, So she had it like a deal with the Oak Park police. Look, if you arrest my granddaughter, just send her home in a cab. And they'd be like, okay, and they call, because you're a minor. Back in the olden days, it wasn't like all that. Unless you did something really bad, then you had to go to juvenile court. But some minor infractions, the parents just come pick you up. So send me home in a cab. I never got in any trouble, right? And anyway, my friends, however, the O'Connors and Lexi Belsack, I shouldn't be busting out my friends, you guys might know some of their parents, but anyway, so I remember, and I had a lot of friends in River Forest, and on the weekend, on nights, we used to climb the fence into the River Forest Country Club and go swimming, right? And we never broke in the building, but the outdoor swimming pool. So we'd be swimming and just like we're talking like 12, midnight, 1, 2 in the morning. And the River Forest police would come and try to, we'd all kind of get wind that they were there, and we'd everybody run in different directions, so we'd all get away. But one time, the River Forest police were really slick, and so they kind of figured out what fence were we basically just climbing over. And what the police did is creep in there, and they greased the entire fence, right, with grease, right? So when we're there, we're like, oh my God, the police are here. So we're all trying to run, and there were 3 of us that could not get over that fence because we kept sliding down and sliding over, trying to get over the fence. And so the police were smart, they got us, right? So I wouldn't have gotten in any trouble. However, my friends, the O'Connor sisters, would have been grounded for the rest of the summer, or maybe the rest of their life, right? Because they had a strict Irish family. So I said, listen, when we get to the police station, we're not gonna, and I'm 13, we're 13 years old. We're not gonna tell them what our names are. So they would go in there and they bring us in the police station and they're like, what is your name? I'm like, I'm not telling you. And we just wouldn't tell them. So they were real nice to us. I remember they brought like McDonald's and like, come on, just tell us your name so you can go home. You know, we just got to call your parents. But I didn't want my friends to get in trouble. So I was real still like, no, we're not telling, don't tell them. So we ended up all there all night until the next morning. The captain came in and he was like, wait, you still have these little girls here? Oh my God, they're giving me a headache. Just tell them to go, you know? So they just said, just go, goodbye, you know? So from there, this went into more drugs and then heroin addiction. By the time I was 17, I left home. I was lured by that what I thought, because it's behavior, right? Of the limelight of like cool, like if you, like when I was real young and you'd say, well, what do you want to be when you grow up, honey? And I would say, oh, I'm going to be a lawyer, you know, or boy, did I get that wrong, you know, I'm going to need a lawyer, right? But so I would say things like that. I wanted to, or like an archaeologist, you know, like stuff like that. But then I was lured by the limelight of them. No, I want to be the girlfriend of the biggest drug dealer on the west side of Chicago. That's cool, right? And then I ended up going in that direction. I joined a gang. I joined the Latin Kings. I was a Latin queen. I do have this teardrop, just for the record. I've never shot or killed anybody, and it is hollow. And in the world back then of the Latin Kings, a hollow teardrop indicates you're mourning somebody, and a solid one would mean that you avenged the death, right? So I was just mourning. Anyway, this kept on with this behavior. I kept getting pregnant and having babies. Thankfully, at some point, my family was like, look, I don't like to say disowned, but I was draining them. At one point, my father told my cousin, like in the last few years, I've spent over $300,000 on my daughter, bailing her out of jail, getting her apartments, paying lawyers, you know, all this stuff. And my crimes were increasing all the time, right? And as far as like scamming and embezzling and just as complete mayhem as you can think. If you read my book, you'd be like, I can't believe this girl actually can talk and is alive and seems intelligent, right? So anyway, I did 12 years in prison over a period of 7 different times, and I just wouldn't learn. And I always thought that I was going to outsmart the system and that I was going to be the first person in the world to figure out how to live that life and not pay any consequences. And I say this now, and I tell the young gang members I work with, I can tell you now, the system always wins. It always wins, right? And I didn't. I could not. You're not going to beat it. You know, you're going to go through a whole lot of hell, and you're not going to beat it. So, you know, like it seems like I had to be like hardcore or strong, or yeah, you know what? That's okay. If I just wouldn't have did this, I wouldn't have got busted. It's just crazy, insanity, right? And then I had the heroin addiction and whatever. In the end, in the very beginning, I'm walking around with 30, 40,000 in my purse because my man was a drug dealer, and I'd go to the dope spot to pick up, you know, money and drop dope off. And then in the end, I had nothing. I was living hour by hour. Like, I don't know if any of you know what that's like to live hour by hour, you know, but I do. So at some point when my last arrest was May 8th, 2010. And at that point, I realized, you know, like, well, I went to prison and it was for shoplifting to fend my heroin addiction. And I don't know, I started really, my father died when I was in prison, and I was way closer to my grandma when she died when I was in prison too. But somehow, and now I say, in my father's death, he gave me life. Because that made me realize that, I don't know what you think. Do you think that every time froze and everybody's okay until I decide to kick back in? Everyone's getting older. I ended up having 5 children. Thankfully, my family raised them. If I would have changed my life, they would have taken me back, but I put them through hell. And my grandmother died with a broken heart. I have to live with that now, right? So I started thinking, you know, look, I'm gonna die. I've been shot before. In 1997 in the projects on State and Cermak, 22nd and Cermak. I mean, the Ickies, they called it, the projects. I was not the target, but my baby daddy was the target. And I ended up getting a bullet ricocheted off one of the cement stairs and hit me in my leg. So anyway, I didn't even know I got shot because there was so much gunfire, and we're on the 6th floor, and we're running to get out of the building. And because my baby daddy ripped off some drug dealer. It's like you can't even make this stuff up, you know? But anyway, we get out in front of the building, but the guys from, that building, which were actually a rival gang that my baby daddy was in, I don't know if he thought he was invincible, and they wanted to kill him, you know what I mean? So we're running, I don't know that I'm bleeding profusely out my leg. We're running like what would be adjacent to State Street, right, towards Cermak, and there's like 6 guys behind us, steady, and just in a panic and a adrenaline shock, right? And I remember then feeling something, and I looked down, I saw all this blood. By the time I made it to the corner of State and Cermak, like I wasn't quite there, I was still on the grounds of the project, but I could see it. And I thought, I'm gonna die. And I saw a Chicago police car turn the corner. And that was the first time in my life I had never been so happy to see a cop car, right? Because I knew that the guys would run and get out of the way. They weren't caught. And then I passed out. And anyway, so, I was okay, obviously I'm here. So, but I fast forward again. I thought, I'm gonna die in an alley from a drug overdose or a bullet, right? That's how I'm gonna die. And I started thinking about stuff like when I was really little with my grandmother, we're Catholic, and her taking me to I went to a Catholic school in Little Italy, and she baked Italian cookies, and she'd bring them to the nuns on a Sunday. We'd go to the convent, and then they loved her cookies, and I just somehow got inspired. I don't know, but I was like 6. And I remember walking out with my grandmother one day. We were gonna go home, and I said, Grandma, you know what? When I get big, I'm gonna be somebody. I'm gonna make a difference, Grandma, and I'm gonna take care of you. I must have thought we were poor because my grandmother was so old fashioned that she used to still use the washboard in the bathtub. So I guess I thought we were we were really, really poor. I don't know, but whatever. Anyway, so all this was flashbacking in my head while I was in jail. I'm like, oh, I was real hard on myself. And I was going, oh yeah, you really made a difference. Oh yeah, you're really somebody. You're somebody. Oh yeah, And I started crying, and I was just like, God, please. And I wasn't even a prayer or not real religious person, but I just thought, and I knew no other way but to say, God, I'll make a deal with you. Because I was like always making deals with people. I'll make a deal with you to take the taste of the streets and the heroin from my mouth until my last dying breath. I'll help people. I got out of prison, and that's exactly what I did. I never got high again. I never went back. It was a lot of work. No one just handed me a life, It took years. Some family members came around after a year, some after 2. I just posted a picture on Facebook a few days ago, my grandchildren being small in 2013. And I said, in 2013, before they knew I was their grandma, I guess they just thought I was some nice lady who happened to be at a Christmas party. They did not know I was their grandmother, right? But now, let's say I'm close to my grandchildren. Actually, they Google, this damn Google. They're always like, gangster grandma. I'm like, stop, but like they get a real kick out of me, right? So we're very close. But back to the work, I do, as far as like Chicago, and to answer this man, kind of put some light on that. A lot of the guns that are, okay, so the police may know. So it's all about, and I'm not a cop and I'm not the expert there with the police, but I've had my share. Now I can see from this lens, and I remember this lens, right? So it's kind of like, so to make a case to arrest somebody is like very difficult as far as like who's smuggling and that drugs, guns. It's the same with drugs. But so a lot of the guns, we have the strictest gun laws in the country. He is absolutely correct. But we have so much violence, right, in Chicago. We're in the thousands that have been shot. Now, I don't know offhand, it's close to 500 that have been killed already to date this year. And if you put a price tag on it, Loyola University, or a hospital actually, in 2015 did a study, and just Chicago, the city limits of Chicago, stating that on average, if you live, you get shot, a gunshot victim that lives, it costs the taxpayers approximately on average $580,000 per gunshot victim, right? Now, I might get just grazed, that's not a big deal, I get right out of the hospital, right? I'm okay, right? But the next person may be paralyzed and need 9 surgeries. So they averaged it to about 580,000. This was in 2015. So I do a lot of studies. I work with data. I run data not only for Chicago, through the Chicago Police Database, but also other cities to compare and finding solutions, right? So a lot of the guns are coming from out of state, Missouri, a lot from Indiana, and I always say, and I'm not against I'm all for legal gun owners, right? I believe that you should be able to be a legal gun owner, right? But the thing is that if we took every gun and put it on Mars, these young guys are still going to figure out a way to get a gun, okay? Somehow, because if you would have taken all the drugs, I would have figured out a way to get some drugs somehow, right? So with the way they're prosecuting in Chicago, so they do have the habitual gun carrier law. So just like a sex offender has to register as a sex offender, a habitual gun carrier has to register as a habitual gun carrier. If they do not, then they also get a technical violation for not updating or registering, and they'll go back to jail. So, I'm all about, let's save the taxpayers money. So that's like kind of, I'm glad they have the deterrent. Also, in the last few years in the state of Illinois, typically a case in the state of Illinois, murder, first degree murder, homicide, how many minutes? I can't. Okay, all right, let me finish. So anyway, so typically, say 20 to 45 years is the range, right? You only get 20 years if you go right into court and say, Your Honor, I'm guilty, I'm gonna save you guys money, I'm guilty, and I'll get that. Just give me 20. But nobody's gonna do that. So I'm gonna fight it, and I'm gonna sit in Cook County Jail. I'm gonna sit there for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and then I'm gonna get found guilty. I'm gonna get 40, 45 years with an additional deterrent. If you get convicted for homicide, there's a deterrent that goes along with that sentence of 25 years. That's at 100%. So if you get 40 years, 45 years, and 25, it's 70 years at 100%. Now, you would think that would deter a 27 or 25-year-old guy, right? But it doesn't. The gangs of yesterday are no longer today. They're very reckless, and like he was saying with the shooting, the reason, like back in my day, and I don't condone any violence at all, but if they knew who their target was, they went up and shot them, and that was the end of the story, right? And I don't condone that, but I'm just telling you how it was. Nowadays, they don't really want to be a shooter, they don't really want to, but I don't know. And then like, okay, there's my guy, oh, right over there, but there's 5 kids and a mother there. So they'll kind of get as close as they can, and they're shooting even us criminals, back in the day, you don't shoot like this, you know what I mean? There's no possible way you can, the trajectory of the bullet, right? So anyway, I'm almost done. Anyway, so they shoot 1 or 2 rounds, turn and run because they don't want to get busted. So now they're running, and as they're running, they're shooting from behind their back, trying to get away. So yeah, children are getting killed. That's the sad part. The thing is that with the prosecution in Chicago, they do like have it. Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. It's probably about 15% out of the 6,000 in. I'm talking only Chicago. I don't know if that number in Chicago is 6,000 guns that were apprehended or found. It's in the city, okay, because I haven't ran that data, but I'd say maybe 15, tops 20%. And the reason for that is they get out, they go to jail. Their first offense, it's a little easier to get out, right? And they're not scared anymore. You know what I mean? They have no respect for the police, and they're just not scared. And so we need to, and I know you guys are residents here and are worried for safety, public safety, right? And the thing here is, like with the funerals going down Madison and them shooting and all this stuff, right? I would love if we can have a further conversation with River Forest, Oak Park, Forest Park, Maywood, Bellwood, right? Because we have to we come together and come up with a solution of what can be done to deter this type of, because you want someone to have their funeral, but you don't want people shouldn't be like, you know, a hostage in their house because the funeral's happening. You're scared, right? So I would really welcome to have that conversation one day. And about 4 years ago, I actually was in Forest Park with the mayor, the then mayor, and we had a whole conversation, you might have even been there, about the funeral thing and about the, you know, gun violence, right? So if anyone has any questions, I know there's other speakers, you can ask me after, I'm gonna stay the whole time. But there are solutions. I know you have to always remember, the police need A, B, C, and D to make an arrest. If they don't have that, that's gonna get thrown out in court. I can't tell you how many times I've gone in front of a judge and I'm like, yeah, because I know no probable cause, you know? So I'm like, yeah, I know they don't get probable cause, right? And I knew that back then, and now it's even more slow, you know what I mean? And it's so hard. My heart goes out to police now. My son-in-law's a cop and in Joliet, and that's like little Chicago, and I worry for him, you know? But anyway, so the bottom line is there are solutions, but it's not an overnight fix. So we have to keep talking. Thank you, Officer Randall, for doing community policing, because we have to break that wall that the police are bad and people don't like the police. You know, I'm not gonna lie, there's some bad police out there. There's some bad people out there. Don't judge the many by the few. That's all I'm gonna say. Thank you.
I do want to have you touch on a little bit the work you've done in the area of violence interruption, where you've gone in, where you knew there was going to be some retaliatory shootings. The neighborhood, as you would say, has become hot.
Right.
Can you explain some of just your work in trying to stop those retaliatory shootings?
So what I do, and he's right, like social media has turned this into a huge pot of up for grabs, right? And so you can like diss somebody, I can dish you and punk you out, and then all the rival gangs are friends with each other on Facebook. Not that they're really friends, but that's their ploy. That way, when I just respect you, not only I'm going to tag you and all your buddies, and then you're gonna be like, oh, he made me look like a punk, and then all your friends are going to pressure you. You're going to let her get away with that, and so this turns into. So I myself, I watch social media. I do. Like I know what areas. I know all the gang. They're like the regular names that you would know. There's facets now. There's PPG. There's TFG. There's the Jeffrey Boys. There's probably 1,000 in Chicago, minimum 1,000 different cliques, right? So what I do, I actually do drive through the hoods. I get out. I walk around. I have what's called credibility, and because people respect me, because I have changed my life, I truly want to help them. I'm trying to talk you out of making a bad decision, but then once you do, you go here, now you're his problem. There's nothing I could do after that, right? So when I notice a beef is going on social media, I go find what we say, like the agitator, the main one that's really causing it, right? So I go find the agitator, which I know all these guys, and I go find him. And sometimes, I'll give you an example. One guy was going to go kill someone because he got punked out on Facebook. Or he got punked out, and then his baby mama or something, there was a picture of her they posted it with a rival gang at a bar, and she's on his lap, whatever. So anyway, so I go to the guy. Now I could get in where the police can't get in. The police aren't going to let them. They're not going to let the police come in the basement while he's loading the gun, right? And then I'm putting myself at risk because I'm a convicted felon, right? And I was like, I hope that somebody will come to my aid and go, no, I swear to God, I'm just trying to help. Anyway, this one guy was like, yeah, and I don't want to swear, but he was saying, he was swearing, and I'm pissed, and I'm going to go blow his head off, and he's like loading the gun. So I'm like, okay, like, Bianca, don't come over here with that anti-violence stuff, and I go, no, hey, you do what you want to do. So I use reverse psychology. So I'm like, okay, they called the guy Baby. I go, Baby. So I just want to understand. Just let me understand. So you got punked out, your baby mama who you're not with anymore, so she was on somebody else's like, okay, I get it. He's like, yeah, no. I'm like, okay. So you got punked out on Facebook and now you're loading that gun and you're gonna go kill the guy. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, I get it, hey, okay. So you got punked out on Facebook, now you're gonna go blow his brains out. And like, yes. And I'm like, okay, all right, I'm trying to process this. Okay, so you got punked out, you feel stupid, so you're loading that gun right now, and I said it like 7-8 times, to the point to where I saw a crack in his smile. Like now they start hearing him, because now he could hear himself, right? Because I kept repeating everything he would say, I would repeat it. It's kind of like reflective listening. And so anyway, so he's kind of cracked a smile. I'm like, all right, so go. You want to go? I hope you don't get caught, whatever. Just remember, there's gonna be a mother crying over a coffee. And I rolls off my tongue, right? And then he was like, you know what? He goes, you know what? I'm not. Okay, you're right. He started laughing. Yeah, that's stupid, right? I'm like, yeah, that's real stupid, So he's like, all right, I'm not gonna go kill him. All right, you go, Bianca. And I go, I'm not going anywhere. I'm hanging. I'm hanging with you all night. He's like, what do you mean? He said, I'm like, I don't care what you do. Smoke a joint, I don't care what you do whatever you do. I'm not leaving. He was like, why? I go, because if I leave, somebody might whisper in your ear and get you upset again. So no, we're hanging all night. And so his girlfriend pulls up in the car, we're in front. And then she's like, baby, get in. And I'm like, okay, open the back door. And he's like, no, you're not coming with. And so I'm like, yeah, oh, we're joining. He's like, forget it. He told his girlfriend, just go. And I literally stood with this kid till like 3, 4 in the morning. He was like 22 years old. And the shooting did not happen. So that's how I interrupted the violence, right? And, but follow-up is real key, because by the time I leave, now by morning, somebody could be like, again with it. There's a lot of follow-up, just like the police have to do a lot of follow-up. Yeah, we all do, right? And so I'm constantly following up. Some of these kids tell me, Bianca, why is it that you're the last person I see at night and the first person I see in the morning? Do you sleep? And I'm like, well, I don't know. Do you sleep? Because you're the first one I'm seeing, right? So I have a good rapport. I truly do care. But on the bad side, some of these guys, and I had to learn the hard way from my feeling bad, like what could I have done to save their life, right? And someone said to me, some people are destined to destroy themselves no matter what you do. And I had to kind of come to terms with that. I did my best, right? But he still got killed. But I know that I saved lives, and my colleagues, we've saved lives. And I not only do this in Chicago, but I do it throughout the United States, and I've even gone around the world giving trainings on violence prevention. And it's not for the faint of heart. There's not a lot of females that do this. You got to have a lot of heart and not be scared to go into an alley behind Madison Place at 2 in the morning, But I'm not saying I'm invincible. I don't carry a gun. I don't wear a bulletproof vest. I don't have a badge, But I have my word and I have my reputation, right? And it doesn't mean it will keep me alive. But the way I say, because some of my kids are like, why do you do that? We worry. And I'm like, you know what? After everything I did, the mayhem I caused, if I get killed trying to save a kid's life, I'm okay with that, So I don't want to die, don't get me wrong, but that's how I live my life every minute. So thank you, everyone.
Are you able to stick around,
Yeah, I'm gonna
listen
stay.
to our guest speaker, and there may be a couple
Yeah,
questions that
absolutely.
develop
I just know
towards
there's
the end.
another speaker. Yeah.
Thank you for sticking
No,
around.
yeah, thank you. And I really want to talk to your prosecutor.
All right, thank you, Angelia. So obviously, Ms. Bianca is in a unique position, kind of straddling the line between police, offenders, and the community, and a unique position to help out. And so we really appreciate what you have to say about the subject. Our next presenter we'll be going back to the Zoom link, is Lisa Coroner. She also with the Assistant State Attorney's Office. She is the legislative director, and she will be joining us to talk about legislative affairs dealing with this issue. Lisa, can you hear us?
I can. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Great. So thank you to both the previous speakers. I think really sets a good stage for thinking about putting community safety first, while also understanding that sort of some past practices, past laws haven't accomplished the objectives of increasing public safety. So I'm really excited to be working for State's Attorney Kim Foxx to try to find a, I wouldn't call it a middle ground, but a way that we can seek to increase public safety while also increasing police accountability and trust, as Ms. Bianco was talking about, in the police, and creating a better environment for everyone to work together. And obviously, I'm sure we all get the horrifying news updates about violence in Chicago. So I'm just going to talk really briefly about some legislative things that have happened in the past year that I'm guessing folks are interested in, and I'll then speak briefly about some initiatives that our office has taken. So the main legislative package that moved forward this year is called the Safety Act. It is, here I can pull up the number, and then it's trailer bill as well. So this was an initiative that was about 600 pages, and then it's trailer bill, which fixed some of the problems with the initial bill to make sure that it was able to be implemented by the law enforcement community. So the original bill, the Safety Act, did a number of things, like I said, 600 pages. And it made, primarily a lot of the changes were made to police practices. So we are talking about things like more clearly defining the use of force and when the use of force or deadly force is appropriate. So that has been tightened up in statute. And also reporting of use of force. So sort of dealing with the officers who are on the scene or who see problematic behavior, giving them a clearer avenue to report and deal with some of these potentially problematic officers. So this might include something like chokehold, clarifying the chokehold, what is acceptable, crowd control mechanisms, and there are some body cam provisions that will go statewide in 2025, but are being implemented on based on the size of a population until then. I'm gonna pull up, sorry about this. One of the things that the bill also did was move Illinois from to a certification model of policing. So there's often talk about bad officers that slip through the cracks, that might move from one jurisdiction to another. So this would create a statewide database that would allow for police departments who are hiring someone from another jurisdiction to look at that officer's records and their personnel records and that kind of thing, to ensure that they're hiring an officer who is going to be good for their department and their community. So that was a huge part of that bill, and I think I hope that it goes a long way towards rebuilding or building the trust between communities and law enforcement. And I think, it's helpful to say that law enforcement was consulted and a very huge part of these discussions to make sure that anything that was passed didn't hinder their ability to do their jobs. So that certification model allows for a more robust and more nuanced evaluation of an officer's performance in the case of problematic officers. There are some other things in that bill that folks on this call might be familiar with. And one of those, I think, I appreciate my colleague for kind of talking about bail and its relationship with community safety. So in 2023, the Pretrial Fairness Act, which is part of the Safety Act, a lot of names, will become law. And that will basically presume that anyone who is charged with a crime will be released. And I know that it's kind of scary for a lot of folks. Because I do understand that it is, must be terrifying to think that somebody who is charged with a crime would be let out before their trial. What this part of the law does is ensure that dangerous individuals are kept in custody. It's why it has the support of the sexual assault, domestic violence community, because it really does allow for a case-by-case analysis of the dangerousness of an individual. So an often cited example would be that Eric Rittenhouse was allowed out on a very high bail while there were people in prison solely because they can't afford to post $1,000 bond. So the goal of that is really to keep dangerous individuals in custody prior to trial, and not with the understanding that we do still have people are still innocent until proven guilty. So taking both of those into account was a big part of that effort. And so those are two of the large portions of that bill, was the police reform and the Bail Reform Act. There are some other protections for individuals who are arrested, things like being able to make phone calls to family members to let them know, where they are. And there are some changes to the mandatory minimums, some class X changes. So mandatory minimums, and then what people might on this call know as the 3-strike rules, to ensure that people aren't serving sentences that are not proportional to the crimes that they are either, convicted, that they are convicted of. So those are some of the big buckets that have been addressed in this very expansive legislation. I'll talk just for a minute or two about some of the things our office has been working on. And one of the things that I would like to say about the bail reform language is our office was very adamant about ensuring that any judge who is, making a bail determination must consider the safety of the community. Initially, some of that language is a little bit more, really wanted you to say, wanted a state's attorney to prove or, to proffer that this particular individual was a threat to a particular person, and what that threat was. And so our office was integral in ensuring that that the judge be able to consider and the state's attorney be able to present information about their potential threat to the community at large. Let's see if I'm missing anything from that. So if folks have further questions about any of this, I'm happy to answer it. I think that, with the River Forest Police Department here, they probably have been working through some of the police certification, use of force, duty to report type of issues. From our office's standpoint, we've been looking at a couple of different sentencing requirements or sentencing reform measures, and kind of making sure that those were appropriate. I think one thing that we've seen is that there are people who are in prison right now who are not dangerous, and who were subject to overly punitive sentences of the tough on crime policies of the past. And these people can be some of the most, these individuals have so much to give to society, in particular because of the sentences they've served. and what they have, you know, the things that they have done to change their lives. So I will talk really briefly about a couple of things that our office has been working on. We have been working on one bill that I'm particularly proud of was Senate Bill 2567, which was an initiative based on recommendations from the prosecutors in our Sexual Assault Domestic Violence Division. This bill, it does a couple of things. It closes the sex trafficking loophole where a minor is trafficked not by their parent, but by a caregiver or a custodian, which tends to be more frequent and isn't reflected in statute. And then there is a similar provision regarding class 1 felony offense of aggravated criminal sexual abuse, again, when it is someone in a position of supervision that is not necessarily a member of their immediate family. This bill also prohibits taking sexual images without consent. So some of these laws were kind of outdated and talked a lot about an expectation of privacy, which in the age of cell phones and all sorts of cameras doesn't really track with the ways in which sexual images can be reproduced and published. And so this would kind of close that loophole. This also, I think of Simone Biles at this very moment when I talk about this, which is removing the ability for a medical professional to argue a consent defense when they are seeing a patient and go beyond the scope of that appointment or that procedure. So that is another thing that bill does. You may have heard that Illinois has become the first state in the United States to prohibit deceptive tactics in interrogations of minors. So we know that minors are much more likely to give a false confession. And this bill, it's Senate Bill 2122, which had the support of the chiefs of police, the sheriffs, was bipartisan, passed unanimously, that takes into account the mental abilities of a juvenile and require, you know, and prohibits those types of practices. Let's see, we've also pursued some expungement availability for, in particular for people with prostitution convictions. Those things are no longer felonies, but for some reason they were still not able to be expunged off their record. And we know that having a criminal record can really have some very negative impacts on housing, employment, and the like. So I think those are the main, and then finally, we pursued a bill that would allow for prosecutors to petition courts to reconsider sentences that were overly harsh, and allow courts to consider the threat that person poses to the community, what that person has, that person's behavior and their record while they've been in the correctional system, so that, there are these folks who have really shown that rehabilitation is a very real goal that we should all be looking towards when we sentence someone to incarceration. So those are some of the initiatives that we've pursued. And, for folks who have questions on the bills that we weighed in on, and always with the lens of ensuring that public safety came first, but that public safety could only come first with the understanding that rebuilding trust in the system and understanding that this system hasn't made us much safer, and trying to reconcile those two things with legislation. So that's what I've been up to, and happy to take any questions. I sometimes talk on a too high level and then I get into the weeds, so I apologize if if I did that today, but happy to take any questions.
Lisa, can you hear us?
Yes.
Just a quick question. We've talked about offenders, we've talked about reform, a little bit the courts, state's attorney initiatives. One thing, and it's a question that came in this evening, they're not hearing anything about victims. Who is the advocate for these victims? Every night on the news, the newspapers, there's moms, daughters, cousins, grandparents. They're crying in the streets of Chicago and crying in other parts of Cook County. Who's the advocate for the victim? Can you share a little bit about what the state's attorney's initiatives, whether it's on the legislative side or what they're doing to support the victims of crime? A lot of focus has gone on other areas, and we understand that, but what are we doing for these victims, especially the victims of violent crimes, that it's affecting them where they don't want to leave their house? It's creating mental health and other type of health issues. What can you share with us just in that area? It seems to be an area that we haven't touched on this evening.
Yeah, thank you for that question. So one thing I am happy to hear about, although I do think it's going to take a lot of community, it's going to take a lot of communication to the public in order for it to really make the impact that it should, are changes to the victim, witness, and violent crimes Victim and Witnesses Rights Act. I hope I'm saying that correctly, which not only increases the cap of money that a victim might be entitled to, but it also expands the people who are impacted by a violent crime to seek retribution, and then further extends the time period for which someone can apply for that. So I think, the main thing for me in that is, people need to know that that program is available, and that's going to be an education campaign. But I am happy to hear that whatever is being communicated will be more robust than, what is currently available. And then, so that is one thing that I'm happy to hear about. And then there is another portion that expands the restorative justice process. And I think that there are a number of victims' rights advocacy groups that have weighed in and have found that sometimes prosecution is not always what they want to see. So there have been some expansions to that process, which include, giving retribution and sort of working on a more community-based level to repair some of those wrongs. And in terms of anything that is regarding somebody to be released either on bond or after being considered for resentencing, there's obviously notifications to victims, and victims and their families are always part of that conversation in terms of appearing in court and offering testimony.
Hi, Lisa, and I feel like I know you because from March to June every year, I come to Springfield a lot, and I give a lot of testimony at the public safety committees. So I think I may have met you. I'm very good friends with Kelly Cassidy, Heather Staines, all those people. But one thing to the question that the chief asked you, like as far as like victims, right? And I think that you could maybe elaborate on, didn't you guys also pass legislation to open it up for people to have more affordable trauma-informed care for the victims? It's not just about money, right? Like as far as like, I know that I work with, not work for, but like work in partnership with a lot of different hospitals like Mount Sinai, who are like really at the top of the line as far as like victims of sexual abuse or rape. And a lot of people were unable to afford, the regular person to afford to go have trauma care, traumatized, right? So the legislation, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, was last year that they enacted that to make it more affordable, or based on a sliding scale. If you didn't have money, then you got it for free, right? But the basic thing is, because if the mother loses her son or the sister sees the brother killed in the streets, that's a lifetime, right? And so the money, yes, okay, that's great. But for me, I don't really care about money. But I want to thank you for your advocacy. on working on these, because I'm pretty sure you worked on that legislation last year, didn't you?
I did. And the bill number is escaping me at the moment, but
No, I know, because there's so much, right? There's so much. So also, so my question for you is with the bail project, right? And I know that like Chicago is in such an uproar, and you know, I mean, I'm not gonna say anything bad about Kim Fox, but everyone's blaming her, right? As far as like letting people coming in with like a gun. If I get arrested with a gun, that's considered a violent crime, right? So even if I didn't shoot anybody, it's still a violent crime. So of her releasing, you know, arrest and release. And so that not only puts our police departments at risk of like, yeah, you can't do anything to me from the offender side, but then also it's like they're spinning their wheels, right? So, and like I said, I'm about prevention. I don't want anybody to go to jail. I prefer no one to go to jail and nobody get killed, right? But with the bail project, my question is, can you, or is there legislation happening right now? Because I know someone last year that was able, because they base it by the amount of bail, right? They'll pay up to $10,000 cash if your bond is $100,000 or less, right? And because everyone should have affordable bail, I get that, right? But this kid had his 5th gun case, so clearly that is a menace to society, right? And he had no bond and somehow was able to get a bond, and the bail project only pays $5,000, but somehow the family said, well, they somehow scrambled and came up with $5,000, and the bail project paid the other $5,000. And I'm not trying to bash anybody, but I keep it real. And this young man got released out of jail on an ankle bracelet, cut the bracelet, left and went to California and attempted to hijack a car and shot the man and killed him. And now he's in LA County jail with 2nd-degree robbery, carjacking, and 1st-degree murder. So, and, but the bottom line, I know that doesn't happen all the time, and I don't want to bash the bail project, because there's people in there that got arrested for shoplifting, but they have a bad record, and their bail might be $20,000 or $5,000. If you have no money, $200 is a lot, you know, right? So is there like guidelines for the bail project? Like, why are they even considering helping somebody who's got a 5th or 4th or 3rd gun case, right? Can there be legislation for that, some guideline or rules?
yeah, that's all, those are all very important questions. And, you know, during COVID, our office took on an expanded role in looking at bail, because there were people who were literally in jail because they didn't have $200. And then there were people who were getting out of jail because they had connections outside who were able to raise that additional $10,000. And so both of these things are a problem. You should not be sitting in jail because you do not have $200. You should not be able to get out of jail because you are able to raise $10,000.
Yeah.
So one thing to note is the bail reform goes into full effect in 2023. So I do believe that there will be additional sort of procedures and things that are put into place.
Yeah, I feel like there should be some rules as far as like, okay, if you're there because you're a drug addict, you got busted with 5 bags of dope, and you only have $200 or $3, and whatever, maybe okay, you know, put a bracelet or whatever. But if you're arrested for your 3rd or 4th or 5th gun case, and you beat already 2 attempted murders, right, and got out because you beat him on a technicality, and now you're arrested on your 3rd or 4th gun case, I don't think that person should be, and again, I'm for the street, I'm for the community, right? But I still have to, at the end of the day, care about public safety, right? So I don't think that person, the person who's beat 2 attempted murders, got out of Cook County, then on their 3rd case, I think that there should be legislation where they don't get to be in the pool of what you pick to say, okay, the bail project will pay your $5,000, right? Do you agree or no?
Yeah, so one thing that I noticed as one thing that happened during
I feel
COVID.
like I'm interviewing you, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry if I didn't mean to interrupt if I cut out.
No, I said, I feel like I'm interviewing you or something.
That's okay. That's okay. one thing that was interesting was during COVID, the bail hearings were all made public, so you could watch them live. And watching those bail hearings, it was like, 15 seconds a hearing. Sometimes I would think, I know exactly how this is going to go, and I would be completely wrong. That happened frequently, actually. So there is some language in that bill that directs courts on what they are supposed to consider. So the nature of the offense and the weight of the evidence. And then they'll also consider the characteristics of the defendant, which would include their ties to the community and their criminal history. So those things will all be taken into account. I can pull up, I don't think I have it in front of me, but I believe there's 6, yeah, I can send it to you. Yeah, I believe there's 6 different categories of sort of what the court is to consider.
All right, well, thank you for your work, and I don't know, did you go to Springfield? Maybe I'll see you down there, right?
Oh, yeah.
So this may be a question here.
Lisa, we do got a couple questions from the audience, sir.
No, mine is not, I came here for a specific purpose, and I have to be honest, I don't feel like this is talking about the reason me as a River Forest community resident is on. I want to talk about what's going on in our community.
That's next on the agenda, sir.
Well, it's great, but I mean, we're running well over, and I appreciate you guys
Sure.
meeting in Springfield, but meeting Springfield, let's get back on.
To
what we
the
talked about
forest.
before.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do we have any other questions for our guest speakers this evening?
I guess that was my question too. We are in a community with a lot of seniors, and we handle like some small assaults and B&Es, and we kind of want to know, we kind of don't want to know that the person's going to bail out if they bring it to a senior's house. We kind of want to know, we kind of want to talk about prevention and, moving forward.
Well, one thing I could share with you is Chris Welch, which is your state representative here in River Forest, and Kimberly Lightford, that's a leader in the Senate. I would be on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, contacting their offices. I would be using your community groups, your churches, your schools, your PACs, your neighborhoods, and petitioning. And right now, no one's really listening to the police. But what they are listening to is the public. They're listening to the citizens.
I guess, what are we saying besides keep us safe, keep our seniors safe, keep our kids safe, allow our kids to play wiffle ball where gang funerals are not shooting down the street at 10:30 on a Tuesday when a 9-year-old wiffle ball game is happening on Washington Boulevard.
Yep.
So what we're coming to you is, what are we asking them? That's a civil liberty. Safety is a civil liberty.
Well, let me, Angelina, if I can just go through this a little bit here. So go through the event that you're talking about that occurred, you said on Washington Boulevard?
I live on Washington and Park.
Okay.
Triangle Park is right there,
Right.
and as you're aware, the south side of River Forest, unlike Oliver, we are saturated with kids. There are 22 children between the ages of 2 and 16 within like a 4-block
Sure.
radius. It's
And
summer.
there was a shooting
No,
due to the gun
there was
funeral.
a funeral flying down Washington
Right.
Boulevard, heading west on both sides of the street where kids are crossing the street, they're playing wiffle ball. The ball's going into the street, people are screaming. Guns were not being shot, but were being waved, and I'm staring across the street at all these kids thinking, what the heck?
They're hanging out the rooftops.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I lived there for
You know, the main
45
routes for the funerals are, and they may have their route, but a lot of times, sometimes Chicago, sometimes Oak Park, sometimes us, and Forest Park, the problem is Forest Park is actually funeral homes within their own community. Is they try to go through a certain community using a certain direction. Division Street has become now, for those that aren't aware, they try to go up Division Street, and there's cars in both lanes, and we have to park our cars head on with them. And you try to pull people over, and they go 100 miles an hour through the communities. And so the best effective method is to quickly and as safely as you can get these groups through. There's other times where they're stopped. There's been times where guns have been recovered. We don't do this by ourselves. We do this with our partners from Chicago and Cook County and Maywood and Forest Park and Oak Park. Roosevelt Road has become an alternate now because of all the issues that have come up with Madison Street and Washington, where I was down in the city meeting with the commander from the 15th district and trying to work with the problems there of these gang funerals. The problem is, the city council supports their right to grieve in the way they would like to grieve. The Cook County Board supports their right to grieve in the way they want to grieve. The county board president supports the way. The state legislators support the way. The Supreme Court, we don't make the laws. That's where you guys are so important at this time in society. They're not listening to the police.
Well, that's a very interesting point, because one of the things that I'm here about is I grew up in this community, and I now have to tell my daughter where she can go, where she can't go, what time she can do, where, and you're right, the police are not being listened to, but we can't just allow it to continue.
We don't allow it. You live in the same, you live in the safest community. Can you point out just a specific?
Well, okay, there was a murder on Madison Street in front of Jimmy John's in broad daylight, a shooting, an officer shooting. Now the street, I've driven up and down that street where, you know, when I was growing up in my early 20s, there were always police out. I don't see a police.
Jimmy
car
John's is a river. I was actually there at that scene that night.
Oh, I know, but I'm
Okay,
just saying
but
it's my backyard.
Right. We also had a shooting where there was a hit on a gang member. They followed them through 5 different communities, including Chicago. And finally, they were able to get a couple shots to connect. And the car rolled onto the River Forest side of the street, just off of Park in Madison. It alarmed the community. Within seconds, police from 5 different agencies were there. Not only that, is we work with our gang task force. I'm actually chairman of our Wedge Gang Task Force. It's 8 towns. You'll never know they're there because they're driving all covert vehicles.
But that's what I'm also getting at, is maybe being there and being visible would help. I've
We
been
are.
up and down. I live on Lathrop, and the only time I see is if I call and then I'm asked the question, would you want officers to stop by? No, I want you to go out there and rest.
Well, as your chief of police, I was on Lathrop 5 times today. From Madison Street all the way down to North Avenue as the chief.
Great.
We actually have trackers in the cars that can give you the exact routes that the officers drive every day.
Perfect.
So what I want to explain to you is that when neighbors did call, we have speed trailers up, we have cameras up, we have decoy cars up, we have extra plainclothes and uniform patrols up. We don't also advertise this to the media because the bad guys report, this is where River Forest is at. But the problem is you live in the safest community. Part of my conversation about what's going on in River Forest is June and July, no carjackings, no auto thefts, no homicides, no shootings, okay? What we have is a situation where the crime is around us and you're hearing it, and we have a resident that goes over to the gas station, I would say shop local, and if use crime as that reason. But if you go and you shop in a different community and you almost get carjacked or shot, hopefully you'll choose your gas station vendor locally. We had another person that got carjacked at the Forest Park station off of Randall. We have a community that's extremely safe, and the stats prove it. The visibility of officers prove it, and we have a sense of transparency. We have a street camera system, so we can actually see what's going on. We have cameras in the squad cars. We have the residents that provide us with their Ring doorbell, their Nest doorbell, their security camera footage. We have other task forces that we're involved in, besides carjacking task forces and gang task forces and child pornography task forces. We're involved with all of them. The officers are out there doing their job, and they're doing it in a legal way. And we do it without having multiple citizen complaints saying someone's rights are violated.
I'm not complaining, I'm just saying, I've noticed there's different elements of things going on that weren't here 12 months, 24, 36 months ago. Now, you're giving me statistics and video cameras and all these things, which is great. I'm just saying, I have 3 children that I've now got a different worry than I had before. And whether that's, you know, the element of seeing things that optically I'm saying, this should not be right. This should not be going on. A kid riding a motorcycle down the sidewalk or something like that. I'm like, it just proves that no one listens, no one cares about the police anymore.
Well, I think as we've gone.
Well, and to the point, you know, we talk about we have the most stringent gun laws. I'm not worried about the people that abide by the laws. I'm worried about the guys that don't.
Right.
Well, some of the issues that we face here is that we had just an individual that was stopped for breaking into a group of cars. The victims didn't want to prosecute due to social justice reasons. due to distrust of the court system. The same individual came back 2 weeks later, and guess what? Broke into a multi-unit building parking lot, and once again did the same thing. And how come, and we're being asked, how come he's on the street if we heard you guys stop him? We are just one part of this system. On the other end of it, we did have a victim that said, I'm tired of this, I'm stepping up, and we were able to work with the state's attorney's office and get that person charged. Everyone's on the street. How would you like to be a victim of a crime? I don't care if it's a burglary, and we see this with our retail theft offenders. We charge them, they're out 8 hours later, 6 hours later. They're back stealing. We had a woman, I think today over the radio, I heard the call where the individual went up and asked the lady for money, and when she said no, he goes, okay, I'm gonna rape you then. On my way into this meeting tonight, there was a car that was involved in multiple carjackings, shootings in multiple communities that was spotted in Oak Park. They just done a robbery in Oak Park, fled from the police, went into Chicago. And Chicago went like this. There's so much going on there that we need support from you to say, hey, the police need the tools, they need the resources, they need the funding. How many victims, if you're a victim of a violent crime or you live in another neighborhood, are you going to testify against someone in open court? It's not going to happen. It doesn't happen when you see the person out the next day because no longer are people are held in bail in Cook County Court. And I believe that no one should be there just because they can't afford. But their fifth gun offense, and I can't even tell you the amount of times we arrest people and they have ankle bracelets. Like parole and probation, as the chief judge's office, how their parole and probation departments are doing, or the governor about how the parole department.
I'd say one of the biggest slaps in the face of the city of Chicago was the individual that had multiple felonies on his record, was put on an ankle bracelet and executed in front of California.
65 shots.
Yeah, and back to your point, shot 60 times. That happened, I mean, I talk about stuff in my backyard, that happened in your backyard. And to me, that is, again, the point that there's no rule, it's become anarchy.
It's culture, there's been a change for a multitude of factors in society and culture. He's dying to ask.
I know,
a question.
no, because I'm with you. My name's Anthony Colvitz, I live here before, so, of course. In kind of Adam's point, like, grew up here. Mine is more, we're not gonna solve the gun problem here. As far as bail, I know people that have gotten out of bail who are more of a pain in the ass when they get out of bail. You're better off just keeping them in jail. I mean, you know who I'm talking to. You know who I'm talking about. But anyway, I'm really more concerned about like my kids on the streets. I live in Jackson and Lemoyne, in between Lathrop. There's four-way, there's stop signs all over the place. I remember, like, obviously I was home during the lockdown, and I remember every day at 4 o'clock, this guy would just speed down Lemoyne eastbound, not stop at anything. And it was like clockwork. And I'm like, I'm gonna call these guys, but then by the time I call, I don't know when this guy's gonna happen. I think, what can we do about that? Like the Lathrop and Lemoyne, that stop sign there, it's, I'm in my front lawn a lot. I can count the times people don't stop there. Yesterday I'm standing out there, I see a car heading westbound on Lemoyne, another car is coming down southbound Jackson, right north of Lemoyne. Had the guy not stopped, normally had the guy not stopped at the stop sign headed southbound, it would have been a tremendous accident. People don't care. And I don't know what the answer is, but what is the solution? Because like I tell my kid, I say, because here's another thing, I tell my kid to ride his bike on the sidewalk. I go, I would ride your bike on the street in this town.
Yeah.
And then I see on Facebook these parents are complaining about it. I'm so, we do live in a safe town. I don't have any question. I live right off the North Ave. It's a safe town. But the drivers in this town, it's like stop signs are optional. And I make an effort because I think it's so important. I drive 25 miles an hour. I'm the guy that they're honking at because I don't want to hit anybody because I don't know who's out there. What can we do about that?
Well, Anthony, the residents call, and how we do traffic enforcement in this community is driven a couple different ways. One, it's based on accident data, and it's at a priority is intersections or locations where there's been injury accidents. We have a traffic analyst. He does that statistical work. He maps it out. It's provided to the shifts. We have a traffic officer. He also works those areas. But really the other major part is resident driven. It's not just community police, it's problem policing. You're having a problem here, Anthony, you call, You give us an area of the times that you're seeing us, you give a vehicle, sometimes you have it on camera.
Get the plate.
And we go ahead and sometimes we've gotten a plate and sometimes we've sent letters out to people's residents that you're speeding in this area. And of course, the car comes back to, let's say, Carbondale, Illinois,
Yeah.
comes
Yeah,
back
yeah.
to Calumet City or something like that. But we concentrate then in those areas based on the intelligence information you've provided. The others is officers that work the same zones, and we have 3 zones in River Forest, a south, middle, and north zone. They know where the problem spots already because they're working the different shifts at different times, and they also target that area. And this is in between regular calls from service. It could be an alarm going off at the house. It could be other matters going on. Our business community, as you go shopping in the area, because there's some homeless challenges that aren't addressed because now the shelters are open. And the services that became depleted during COVID on the street, if they have to eat, they don't care about going to jail because they know they're not going to jail. If we arrest them and we charge them with retail theft or criminal trespass, which we do, we have to let them out in an I-bond. If we bring them over to county, they immediately have the circuit court judge's order to immediately release them in an I-bond where they don't even have to go before a judge. So this is what we're facing is the system. What besides traffic, the number 1, 2, or the number offense after that is unlocked cars. Please lock your cars. Please turn your alarm systems on. Don't leave your golf clubs, your iPads, your phones, your wallets, your purses visible in these cars overnight. We had a gentleman, he had his car stolen twice from his own driveway. Why? Because he left the keys in the car because there was 5 kids and everyone got tired of having to, figure out where all the keys were. So they just started leaving their keys in the driveway. So the individuals that were part of a car theft crew, they knew where to go. I'm not going to say where the block was, but they just went back to the same place. They knew, and the guys, so I only needed to put my finger in the light socket once. I can't speak for everyone else, but we work very hard. The officers take a very serious approach, but it's very community oriented, and we make arrests. We get guns off the street. The commander that was in the back of the room, and I, probably about a month ago, were monitoring a call of shots being fired at a vehicle coming out of the city. Came up Madison, went down Lathrop, got in a horrific crash just east of Fresh Tank, I believe. And the guy's running out trying to shoot the guy. His gun jammed. So the commander and myself were there as they were fighting, as he's pistol whipping the other individual. And we were able to take him into custody. And it could have been an incident where one of us had to discharge our firearm to save the individual that wasn't armed. And what was it over? Respect. It was over a beef. It was over a girl. And it all started at Central, right by Loretto Hospital, is where it started. Amazingly, even though we've heard a lot of different stories in the news or maybe tonight, the individual had just been arrested for shooting at a group of people 2 weeks prior in Oak Park and was let out in bond. No revocation of his FOID card, no being kept in custody. And this individual, if the gun hadn't jammed or the rounds that he was firing as he was coming through the city, would have killed this individual. And he was back on the street. And guess what? Even after his second arrest, they let him out again. And I don't even know who they is anymore. Because this is what you see at the court system. They all point at each other like that. And once again, it's really up to you. We're going to keep the town safe. We're going to work with our partners at the county, state, federal level. We have the lowest crime rates of any community around here. We make arrests. We work closely with the state's attorney's office, the U.S. attorney's office. We have federal partners, and we use combinations of strategies that are successful and they work. And people come to us, ask us, how does this work? But it works partially because we're in a small community. We have the support of our residents, and our residents have alarm systems. They have cameras on their homes. We have street cameras. We have a vast street camera system, license plate readers, cameras in squad cars, license plate readers on squad. We embrace technology. There's not one thing that makes this work, but it's you guys that are making those calls to 911. To me, non-emergency, don't call. You say you're seeing something, you're not sure, call 911. Get that call out right away, because you call 9-emergency, you may get caught in a loop of calls that, because they're answering the calls for Oak Park. We're answering the calls for Forest Park.
So you really want, if all of a sudden again, Lathrop being a busy intersection, if I'm on Lathrop, and there's a car speeding down, you want me to call
Yes.
911?
It's a reckless driver.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm just asking, 'cause
Well, Well, you know what, when we catch those that are on ATVs or motorcycles, ever been behind motorcycles and no motorcycles have plates on them anymore? Or they're bent up? Well, guess what? It's a national problem, but the ATVs and the mini go-karts and everything, if we catch it, we impound it. It's now ours. And also, if you go next door, there's, and once again, they have so many challenges next door in Maywood, and we try to help them out. We all try to help each other out. But it's very common. It's been that way for years. Mini bikes, motorcycles, go-karts, they're all over the place. I drive through Maywood
It's worse this summer. There's some ass clown that like does a loop from.
they come out the trails
Lathrop,
too.
yeah, they come out Lathrop up Madison. We hear this mini bike all the time.
Very distinctive
And you
sounds.
see the kid, and it is a mini bike, and it's like, you gotta be 25 years old. You're riding a mini bike on the sidewalk in the street. You caught one in front of Proviso a couple of weeks ago, or maybe last month or something. You guys caught one of the guys, but they're endless, and they just do circles around.
They're so affordable. They're so affordable to buy on the used market. You have a question and you've been waiting so patiently.
First, I'd like to say that, to your point, Washington Boulevard, people were flying down when they changed Madison. The presence of police on Washington Boulevard, especially recently, has been phenomenal. Thank you, we appreciate it, they're slowing down, it's been great. And I work with River Forest Police a lot with working, always super responsive. But my main question is, could you talk a little bit about how River Forest is working with Maywood, Forest Park, Oak Park, Elmwood, whoever, to, because I mean, the things that are happening on Madison are not in River Forest. They're in the bars on Madison that is affecting us, affecting Oak Park, affecting Forest Park. So what are you doing? What can we do? I mean, I'm a 911 caller. My husband and I call all the time. There's some strange car at 3 a.m. I'm a light sleeper. He just turned his lights off. He's finding to something. Maybe it's his boyfriend sneaking out of a girlfriend. I don't know, but we call all the time.
911, I like that, because if you're second guessing yourself, you already missed that window.
But just what are you doing to collaborate with these?
Well, we collaborate, we're not only part of several task force, the homicide task force, the gang task force, we're part of a school safety task force, which trains and works with the schools in several communities on active shooter situations. We have Officer Ransom here that works with the businesses, the schools, the seniors. We do a lot of education, we do a lot of analytics. We work with our federal partners, so if they're working a case and they need assistance working in our area, might not be in River Forest, we work with them. In Maywood, they provide us with a lot of intelligence. We are usually a pass-through. And what happens is that, and I noticed this after the flood, and Anthony, this is to your point, after I'll say one of the 3 major floods I've worked at, I've been working in this town for 27 years, and they say, oh, this will only happen once. No, whether you call it a 1,000-year flood, a 100-year flood, I feel a little old. But during those times, if you remember, River Forest is one of the few towns that you can get through east-west. And north-south for certain points. And ever since that, I believe 2011, was it 2011, Ben?
2012 maybe.
Okay. Maybe that was a snowstorm, but.
First Avenue is the highest point under this point, really. That's why.
Exactly. And,
The highest point.
you know, we were at Washington Boulevard became the cut through, and then everyone figures, I'm getting off the Eisenhower, I don't like North Avenue anymore, I don't like 55, and we really become a cut through. And there's a lot of different ways, there's engineering, there's signs, we have a lot more traffic coming through this town than I've ever seen before, and it's our number one complaints that come in, our number one complaints that we address are safety. We do pedestrian safety missions where officers like Officer Ransom here will become the decoy, and we'll have them cross at a crosswalk, and cars try to hit them, and then we pull over the car, and they say, we didn't see the flashing lights at the crosswalk, or we didn't see the pedestrian. I can't believe you're giving us a ticket. So these are the type of really smart initiatives that we use. We constantly have to change your strategies. There's not one in CERT.
I'm on the youth services committee for the township, so we fund your program with the schools. And I would like to say last year with COVID and schools were out, you guys made a bunch of films, and those videos are great. And I hope that you continue to make them, as well as since we're in school now, you do the live lectures to the students. But the films are great. I saw them because we fund the project, but I don't know, I think you guys are going through something where you have kids sign off, parents sign off on kids or whatever. But I think that we put those out to the community, and so that you'll get more viewership of them, to the children as far as safety, and then throw in the crosswalk stuff. I mean, throw in pretty much anything I would say throw in pretty much anything you want to, and constantly put them on the website and, send them out to residents so they'll be aware of a lot of things.
I'll let Ben take over. I'll let you take over for me in a
That's,
second.
that's part of our research program, which is what we teach the kindergarten through 8th graders at the schools. And yeah, what we did, we made a bunch of films. We made one major film, like a feature length, like 30 something minutes, and to cover all these things that we normally cover in assemblies. Your reaction is like all the principals' reaction to teachers and kids, they loved it, and it was very informative, very concise way of doing this. What we have decided to do is we're looking right now, I actually got an email today about it, is we're looking to rebrand iSearch to get more into that. So I have started creating animated films, working with the animation program, bringing in some voice actors and stuff to actually expand a video library and then hopefully make it available to the schools first and the community as a whole. We're also looking, we just, our department just joined the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, which is specifically just cyber crimes, and it has a lot to do, a lot of resources coming from NECMEC, the National Center for Exploited and Missing Children, of cyber crimes and instruction videos and PowerPoints and presentations for kids, and we're going to be incorporating that. We plan to into our presentations and to creating more video libraries. So a lot of work ahead of us, a lot of rebranding and looking into logo and stuff like that. We might even reach out to the community to kind of get some help on that. But yeah, I appreciate that because that's my baby. So we are looking to do a lot.
Also with adults too, as far as people should be a grading system. They should have burglar alarms and not leave your keys in your car. And
Utilize solar lighting if you.
Robbery, things like that, solar lighting. I mean, throw all of that on videos too, and just kind of keep sending it out and keep kind of pushing the whole thing, and let's be preventative. Because I mean, you guys do great work. If we call, you do come, and that's great. But I mean,
We're the quickest responding town in the area. And I'll keep toting all the positives so you can hear it, but we actually have statistics to back this up. But what we're hearing in some of the towns around us is almost what you hear in Chicago, and you probably know that there's 7 violent calls on hold.
Right.
There's a robbery, a shooting, a gang fight, a sexual assault, all holding. We're actually at your house between 30 seconds and 4 minutes, depending on the call or the call volume. We're still providing that high level of service, which you guys deserve and everyone deserves in this country. But there's communities around us. They're having to wait 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes for an officer to show. And that's part of the trust between the community and the police where, well, we call you and you never show. And then someone just, has to clean up the mess. So we're continuing trying to improve our ways. You have a village board that's very receptive to conversations about public safety. You have Kathy Adducey, your village president, that's very supportive of public safety. And she talks about it publicly. And reach out to your trustees. Talk to them about what resources you think maybe public safety doesn't have in the village here. They're very supportive and opening to listening. We have officers coming out of the academy, officers going into the academy. Unlike some communities, we've been able to actually still fill our ranks with officers. And me, as you know, there's been officers, they've even decided to retire a little bit early. They've decided to leave Cook County communities and go work for communities outside of Cook County where they feel there's different type of court system being used.
That their hands aren't tied.
Exactly, that'd be the simplest way to say it. So we're meeting them, but hold on, let me get Anthony here real quick.
Last question. So, my wife works at the Walgreens in Elmwood Park in North of Harlem. And I mean, I know but this is more like a shoplifting. She says it's like kids in a candy store. Like there's nothing you can do. Like, people can just go into these stores, steal everything, walk out. She doesn't want to get involved in it. Like, what happens at like the Walgreens on Lake Street? I mean, are they?
Every day people come in and they steal.
And then
The
what do you
problem
do?
is,
Yeah.
the stores, and hopefully if you're a shareholder or not, they just pull all the security out of the stores. The mall, we're having ongoing discussions at the town center with the security at the town center. We are here for the residents, are a priority. Because your business doesn't want to have security anymore and you feel the River Forest Police are going to supplement your security, that's not our job.
Like, I mean, like, why is it seems like someone was saying, like, just things are ignored. Like, you talked about people riding many, ATVs. I was in.
But we don't ignore it.
No, I don't know, but I'm saying it's just like, law, I mean, is the criminal just doesn't care anymore?
Well,
I mean, I
the
don't
criminals
understand.
don't care.
The offender just
The
doesn't
offender
care.
doesn't
The offender doesn't care because there's no,
Consequences.
there's just no consequences from anyone.
And that's why, like, I think, like, I see a guy every day speeding down my street. What's the point of calling? It's kind of like when I read the,
Well, we write them,
keep
we write them
calling,
citations,
keep
but if the court system throws the ticket out, once again, we're only one part of this big pie.
right, it's like you guys talking about the gang criminals. I read the Forest Park Review and they say, we saw that, we got the picture of the camera and we sent them tickets, based off their
They
license
don't
plate.
care.
They don't care about that. That doesn't do, I mean, I don't think people care
And
about
that
that
brings me to
stuff.
what I wanted to say. like,
So what do you mean? So what is the, like, what, I mean, they don't, I mean, what's the, like, it's like, we have all this enforced that we want to do something, but it's like, you enforce it, but nothing ever happens.
Well,
Like,
because
I mean,
you
it just stinks.
don't take a defeatist kind
Well,
of
I'm not to
kind of
the
role.
idea.
And I know you, Anthony, and
Yeah.
I know you'll call, you have to keep calling. We're gonna keep doing our job.
Oh, I know,
And that's what the residents and you guys all expect from us. We cannot control the Cook County State's Attorney's Office, the Illinois Attorney General's
yeah, that
office,
was the worst person. to have
the
on-
chief,
on
the
the call.
the chief judge's office, parole, probation, all of them. We have no control or information.
Yeah. My one last comment is, and I really do appreciate it, again, it's very informative to have everyone speak. I don't want it to get to a point where, to Anthony's, an individual going through a stop sign hits a kid coming home from school and kills him. And then we all go, oh, what happened? That's because it's been going on, no one paid attention until a 9-year-old River Forest girl is catastrophically run over and killed on the corner of Warren and Jackson. And we all go, told you so.
We could be talking here right now and you could pick, there's stop signs or traffic control at every intersection now. In the village of River Forest since they instituted that safe school routes program. And the problem is, we all can't be sitting next to someone and telling them, this is a stop sign coming, this is 25 miles an hour. It's not 50, but our officers write tickets, they pull people over, they arrest people for traffic offenses. Once again, the judges throw these cases up. There's no recourse, or they give them minimal fines. So not only aren't people fined anymore, they're not sent to Cook County Jail. Cook County Jail's at a historic low. And a lot of it could be handled, there's not the resources out there to get them the health and jobs or education. Until we start taking care of people when they're 3 years old, 5 years old, 8 years old, 10 years old, they end up becoming part of the law enforcement and the court system by the time they're 10, 11, 12 years old. We have to stop that cycle, and the police can't be the one dangling this. One of the problems we have is that when we don't do our job, there's so many reforms, and I believe if you follow the stories in Chicago is like 20 oversights of committees and the federal governments and decrees and aldermen and committees.
They do not.
But you know what? When the prosecutors make a mistake, you know what their oversight is? Nothing. When the judges make a mistake, you know what their oversight is? Nothing. Only ones that have oversight and actually can be sent to jail or are sent to jail or are fired, and we don't want bad police officers. And our fire and police commission here work extremely hard to make sure that bad apples are weeded out of the process at the beginning of employment. When we have issues, we address those, and people are cycled through the disciplinary system, or they decide to resign. But really, it's up to you guys as residents. The politicians have to be told you're tired of it. You've had enough of it.
Can I ask you a question, just based on what you were saying about the right to grieve? And just for all of us who do live by, I'm on Thatcher, so there's a lot of that kind of cutting in and out on Washington, et cetera. Are you saying if they're coming through with firearms out the window on the wrong side of the street, you can't stop them?
Of course you can, and we do.
So
We do all the time when they come to River Forest. What I'm telling you is what the elected officials
Legislation.
and the legislators said is that we don't want to get involved with how people grieve. That there's constant battles between the district commanders in Chicago, from the 25th district and the 15th district, the 11th district, the 10th district, which is Harrison and Kedzie, if you're familiar with that police location. And it's a constant battle with them saying, and they're like, no, we're just performing a service. And that's why you're seeing the police actually roadblock certain areas and move them to different, so they're not coming through directly through Oak Park. Now they're being sent down to Roosevelt. And once again, I can't hit it home hard enough, is that how your guys are talking to me tonight and explaining your concerns, whether they're, you're concerned about the future, you're concerned about now, you really got to hit it with these legislators. And you really got to call them on the spot because they're not seeing this. They're listening to large groups tax and they're making their decisions based on that. And this is separate to do from any of the reforms. This has to do with, we've lost the humane and humanity, okay? Please, of course, Angelina, I love it.
Killing me here. So, to your question, what do you say, right? And so, I feel like I know you, Anthony.
Oh.
So here's the thing, Action Speaker Welch, right? So I'm gonna call him tomorrow, and I'm gonna say, hey, look, this is a problem. This is not any new problem with funerals, right? This happens coming from the funeral home down, down Roosevelt in Chicago, and then ends up in the Forest Park or one of the cemeteries. This has been going on, and the police, like he said, I have to agree, as we all would, their hands are tied, right? And it's sad that it's like that, but here's what you do. Flood their office with cause. You're the state senator, you have a state representative, Walsh, right? Who also is Speaker of the House. He wants to do a good job, right? He wants to make sure that he stays in there as long as God forbid he has again. But anyway, but here's what you do. You call. So you've been dealing with this problem in Forest Park, in Root Forest, all the suburbs around here going to, and even though you're just displaying a gun, holding a gun while you're high on codeine cough syrup and smoking blunts, right, in the funeral, we don't know that gun might not go off, right? And then a child will get killed. So you have to flood them because legislation has to be changed. Are you listening?
Yeah, but it's not gonna change because
It was not, yes,
You
it was.
can't throw rice at a wedding, but you can stick a gun at a
It's
funeral.
not-
Yeah, right,
it's not-
right. I
it's
totally
not-
agree with you guys.
It's
No.
not going, I've lived in Cook County my entire life. It's not.
But you have to admit it's a lot worse now, right?
I'd say it's worse because, pardon my French, no one gives a shit.
Nobody cares,
That's what I
right?
mean, there's
So what I'm
no
saying,
disregard. Actively, people shoplifting, no big deal, take it, don't pay
it's
for it.
horrible, and it's like, arrest and release, that is totally true. And what the woman, the Lisa lady was saying, I that's why I kind of asked that question about why is the Vail Project letting out, like I gave, that's a real example of a guy on the Smith gun case who got out with that program after his past record, his rap sheet showed beating, Kelly two different times, being in jail for attempted murder. Beat it, got out, attempted murder, beat it, got out, first time, second, third, fourth, fifth gun case, and they let him out. Why is that? Because that's the legislation. The police have they made the arrest, they put him in jail, and then bam, now he's out. He cuts the band, he went to California, and he killed somebody. And now he's like crying, and his girlfriend called me, and I'm like, why are you calling me? I tried to tell him not to do that. I
There's
mean,
no accountability.
Right, there's no accountability.
Accountability.
I feel what you're saying, and I do get overwhelmed as probably the police, we all in this room get overwhelmed, right? We're like, it's never gonna change, it's not gonna change, but we can't say that, I'm not one of them, I'm very
I'm kind of with
optimistic.
Adam, I just don't want a kid
A
to get
child,
hurt. That's
neither
really
do
the
I.
only reason.
But you have to be calm.
That's really what I'm.
You have to call, you pay taxes, don't you? You pay taxes a lot, right? it's a lot of taxes to pay to live in River Forest, correct? And a lot of that goes, the state, those are state taxes, right? Well, in River Forest, but you know what I mean, like, so the bottom line, you are paying the salary of Speaker Walsh. You are, he works for you, he works for you, he works for me. You know, he, because he's a speaker, he works for the whole state, and then because he's your rep, he works for you here, right? So flood his phone. I'm gonna call him tomorrow and tell him I was at this meeting in River Forest, and this is a real problem, and I've known about it and tried to help other, like Forest Park, when we talk about this. But I'm like with Anthony, I will agree with you, enough of the talking. Stop with the talking, but we can't even look to the police for, you know, like they will, but they're not dumb, they know about it, they watch.
What's very evident for me is, like, where I'm looking at the police as you're that shield between us and the
Right,
problem. It's
yeah.
not us, them and the problem, it's them and the higher up that's
It is,
deciding
yes.
what's prosecutable, what's
Mhm.
not, when
Yes,
somebody's afraid of
yes.
the police, what.
And when
I
they
mean,
see something
when I grew up in
done-
Oak Park, to the point where you're talking about the car that gets stolen out of the driveway, when I grew up in Oak Park, we would go out of town and lock our doors.
Yeah.
I know,
Keep
when I was
it
young too. We
Right.
never
And
got
now
out.
it's I've got
Well,
alarm system on
times-
my
My front
house.
door is open 24/7.
But I'm telling you, if you continue to call your legislators, I'm telling you, so be relentless and I've been
Angelina?
constantly persistent.
Angelina, we're gonna lose our bandwidth here any second.
Yeah, I got it.
But I do think this
Just
does
call,
beg for
just
some
call.
further conversations in a forum in this area. We work for you guys, we serve you guys, and we take every bit of advice, and there isn't like large cities or communities where some on our borders where you call and it's gotta go through 8 layers of red tape or a committee, a subcommittee, a city manager, and then someone else needs to vet it from HR or risk management. You make the call, immediately we're addressing the issue. It doesn't mean it's almost like fishing. You can go and hope you catch a fish and you have the bait, you have your fish finder, you might not catch it. But there's gonna be that time you are gonna catch the fish and you can't be in that, unless you're in that spot where they are, you're not gonna be successful. And we constantly do that. Do you have one more question before we close out?
All the main thoroughfares have cameras now?
Not all of them. Our next section of expansion that was approved by the village board is the area between Washington and Madison. It's part of a capital improvement plan. The next following year after that is the middle of River Forest, followed by North River Forest. And you have to keep building, you can't throw cameras up, that's a network, so you can't throw cameras up on North Avenue and then work your way
One
back.
last thing I would say, and this is maybe to Officer Ransom, is that River Forest, a kid our kid's age got a stray bullet in the head and everybody went crazy. Communication through social media that we're on it. River Forest Police have always been on it, we're gonna be on it, and here's how we're on it. Will help settle things down. I mean, I worked for a management company that manages all the condos.
Sure.
And panic was crazy. Nobody wanted to leave their house, so like.
We do, one thing, then the village is part of the communication plan, all communications are run through the village administrator's office and their staff. And so the police department doesn't run its own Facebook site, we're not set up for that, because you really need to have someone that's monitoring that most of the day or all day. So we centralize that for all the departments. Information gets out, if you're not signed up for alerts, you won't get community alerts. If you don't go to the village website or you don't go to the village Facebook site. But a lot of times, our officers haven't arrived on the scene of an accident or a crime. Someone's taken a picture of the accident scene before the fire department or police department have gotten there. And then, within probably a few minutes, the village president's called. I just saw this on Facebook. You know what? We just arrived 30 seconds ago and we're managing it. And what's great is that, once again, all of your trustees and the village president are very concerned about public safety. It's a highest priority. When I say public safety, it's police fire. And they're doing a great job across the board. And it's probably one of the reasons why I'm still here, is because there is that support from one. And I grew up in Oak Park. Okay, so I understand what it is. I went to Fenwick, yeah, so I know what it's like, growing up in this area, and I have friends, and they come and say, you can do better than this, Jim, you know what it's like, right? You gotta keep us safe, the seniors, the children, except when they get pulled over and they're late to, drop their kids off. was just dropping my kid off. Yeah, but the residents are concerned about speeding around the schools. So, do you have a comment,
Sorry,
Pam?
I'm sorry to interrupt you. No, I want to ask if you feel like your police department and all of the officers feel appreciated by us. I mean, is there a sense of how much we really value you guys, or is there something more we can do to kind of build?
I can answer. Can I answer?
Yeah, please, go right ahead.
We do feel appreciated. I know what it's like to drive around the community, have someone flag me down and they're not asking for help, they're just saying, hey, thank you for being here, thank you for what you do.
That's wonderful.
That's why I love working in this community and that's why I'm staying in this community. You guys know a lot. It's been a hard year for us police officers. During COVID, we were the heroes. During COVID, we were the ones out there. Everyone was sheltering in place. We were still taking calls. We were still masking up, going to people's residences when they're having domestic abuse, whatever. Shortly after that, with the George Floyd case and everything, we became the enemy #1, and everything shifted on its head. We still had to do our jobs, right?
Yeah.
So we appreciate that, and we understand that we appreciate it. Let me tell you this: when it comes to prosecuting, arresting these people, no one wants to see these people behind bars and off the streets more than us. Okay, when Chief and Commander ran up to that guy who was pistol whipping the other guy a month and a half ago, I was racing down North Avenue on foot. We were running there, and when everyone else was either filming, not helping either party, or running away, we were running there to stop the crime, right? Not only, that's a few minutes of excitement, adrenaline pumping, and us maybe feeling I might get hurt right now. But after that, we're talking about hours and hours of paperwork, of interviews, of detectives coming in, of taking evidence, of taking blood samples, of getting fingerprints off a gun, all that kind of stuff. We have very best interest that case gets prosecuted, and to see him back on the street a couple days, that deflates no one more than it deflates us. But we have to keep trying, and if you want to know how you can help us, like we've been saying, honestly, make those phone calls, start those petitions, get together as a group, get your voices heard, because like Chief said, we're going to keep doing it. That's our job. We love working here for you guys. We want to keep doing it, but we need other support, other legs to stand on, and that's the only way it's going to come is from you guys. We've said our piece. The state, the courts, they know where we stand on the issue, and now it's to the point where the community needs to be heard. So whatever those forums, and Angela, would appreciate you being able to kind of bridge that gap and help them get them connected or make those phone calls yourself. That's really what's going to help us. So thank you so much.
Thank you for your
I'm going to
Thank
sign
you.
this off. Thank you everyone for everyone that tuned in at home, and we hope to keep this going and keep this conversation going. And you can contact me at 708-714-3543, branson@brf.us.
Do you think?
No, thank you.